On this episode, we sit down with Claudio, a cop, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and co-founder of Landshark BJJ, which provides free jiu-jitsu classes for law enforcement. Now with the show. All right, Claudio, thanks for doing this.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No, awesome. And if you could just tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Well, my name's Claudio. I'm actually from the Montreal area. A little about me, I'm in my 6th year in policing. I'm currently working as a detective in major crimes. That's got me real busy. I was complaining just earlier about tendonitis in both forearms.
It's dangerous.
Surprisingly, it's not from grappling, it's from the keyboard, typing out warrants. So
Pen is mightier, or the keyboard's mightier than the sword, I guess?
That's it. A little bit more about me, I guess. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 9 years now. I've been a black belt for about 1.5 years. I compete quite a bit. I try and compete as much as I can. Some months I got a competition every weekend. Then I'll take a month off, 2 months max, and get back into it. I'm big on competition, and I think it really helps with that whole idea of tunnel vision, right? When you get on the mats, you're dealing with that in a sense. Especially when I first started competing, I couldn't hear my coach yelling out instruction. And as you compete more and more, you get better at that. And it's funny, I've told friends, I've been more nervous going to a jiu-jitsu competition sometimes than rolling up to a knife call. But so that's it. I'm a black belt with Brazilian top team out of Montreal. Before jiu-jitsu, back in the day, I started with bodybuilding around 15, and I was all about that. And then around, I think it was like 22, one of my brothers was doing Kaji Kembo, which is a Hawaiian Kempo style that resembles Krav Maga a lot, and he kept telling me, come to Kaji Kembo, it's badass, and you'll learn to defend yourself. And I always said no, bodybuilding's my thing. And then he agreed to pay the first 3 months, so I went, and actually I was doing it with two of my brothers. I have a twin brother and one of my older brothers, and they both ended up kind of stopped going, and I kept going, and I did that for about 6 years, and I loved it. And I guess some more about my background. Basically, how I came to jiu-jitsu, I was working as a doorman in Montreal on one of the main touristy streets. I did that for many years, and I found striking clientele wasn't great because that just escalated the situation. So, of course, I often found myself grappling. And I had buddies doing jiu-jitsu. They were purple belts, a set of twins. They were the bus boys. They were like little short guys running around the club, picking up glasses and all. And they kept saying, do jiu-jitsu, do jiu-jitsu. So, of course, I went and tried a jiu-jitsu class. And, I'm a heavyweight. And I was doing karate. I thought I was all tough. And of course, I tried a class, and I get absolutely spanked by like a 115-pound girl. She took my back, tapped me multiple times. And then I said, well, I guess I'm doing jiu-jitsu now. And so I switched over to jiu-jitsu. For a little while, I was doing both, but I found it difficult to do both Hawaiian Kempo and jiu-jitsu. Hawaiian Kempo was really hard on the body. We did a lot of body conditioning and striking and all that. I remember once it was my birthday, and they're like, all right, get in a horse stance, 100 punches to the stomach from each person in the class.
Oh, that was nice of them.
So I credit that for,
Happy birthday.
Yeah, that's it. I credit Kaji Kembo for making me tough and learning how to learn, because that helped me accelerate my jiu-jitsu learning. And so I got hooked on jiu-jitsu, and like I mentioned earlier, I found myself grappling in nightclubs, and, it really helped a lot, because you'd grab the guy, you'd squeeze them real tight, you'd tell them in their ear, nothing personal, man, you just got to go, you come back next week, versus the Golden Gloves boxer we had who would just knock people out, and they'd come back at the end of the night with a knife, Yeah. Which is unpleasant. And so I've always appreciated grappling. So I did that for years. And then I guess we'll talk about my career. My twin brother started policing before me. He invited me to do a ride-along. He was working in the Toronto area for a major police force there. I went and do a ride-along, and I said, wow, this is crazier than an episode of Cops. It was an absolute blast. I still remember the name of the guy. He had arrested a guy for dangerous driving off the highway, and we were both in the cruiser, and the guy looks in the front, and he's crying, and he says, are you guys twins, And the other day I mentioned the guy's name to my brother, and he's laughing. We never forgot. And of course, my brother was courteous to him and all, but the guy was driving dangerously, and he was placed under arrest, right? So I remember that first arrest, and after that day I went back to university. I got a degree in political science, and I applied to a major police force in Ontario, where I've been ever since.
Nice.
I worked at a couple different spots, and now I'm closer to the Quebec border, because, like I mentioned, I'm from Montreal, and that's it. I've been working as a detective, and I've been training jiu-jitsu and teaching. I actually teach at 3 separate schools. I also teach at work once a week, pro bono, on Tuesday nights to personnel at my detachment.
How does that go? Do you guys have mats there? Or do you have a training space?
We thankfully, it's after 2 different inspectors. The second one was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu and said, "Claudio, go for it. You have my support." And so I got a nice little spot up on the loading dock. There's 2 levels, and I actually invested the money myself. I asked our gym fund, and they weren't interested in supporting us, so I spent $1,000. I bought the mats, and like I was saying, Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they'll come. And when I initially sent out an email to the detachment, I had tons of interest. All right, we're starting it up. Then I get 1, 2, members that come, and now we've got about a solid 6 members that come every Tuesday, and it's great. People are really getting involved and enjoying the camaraderie that brings, and we've had members deal with some critical incidents, and I feel that training together like that helps people get those thoughts out of their head and focus on what we're doing and laughing and having a good time.
How do you work it out? Can they come in on shift? Do they come in before shift? Like, how do they usually do it?
Yeah, so that was one of the rules. Upper management said you can do it as long as they sign a waiver and that they do not train on shift. So it's off duty, out of uniform. We train primarily in the gi, and then we take off the gi sometimes. And we're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not an IST instructor, which is in-service training in Ontario.
Sure.
Although I can be critical of IST, sometimes I think they do a wonderful job.
Yeah.
And the future of IST, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of changes, a lot more grappling incorporated.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing it this year. They had car extractions using the frame of the door as a platform to push the arm against, kind of like an arm bar to remove them. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, it's funny they're using concepts like leverage and fulcrums and stuff. Yeah,
and physics.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
And you know what? That's awesome, because I've been at impaired calls where some guys on my platoon are just, buddy doesn't want to get out of the car, so he's just punching him in the face.
Yep.
And I don't think that's great. And you don't want to be too critical of your coworkers, but you want to encourage them to treat people the way you want to be encouraged. Sure, buddy's driving
100%.
drunk. But, we all make mistakes, and I always try and treat people the way I want to be treated.
It's not always your motivation to get out of a car when somebody's punching you back into it is kind of, it's not always there.
That's it.
It's not always there. I always say it's similar when you're trying to get somebody's hands out and you're kneeing them in their ribs or something, and it's
That's
like, give me your hands. They're like, well, that's the only thing that's keeping my ribs safe, so
exactly.
I'm not going to give you my ribs.
So let's, it's a fascinating topic, but... there's a lot of what I'd say tough guys at work that I thought would come to jiu-jitsu, and I don't know if it's their egos that don't allow them to, but I'm very kind and welcoming, and there's one Earth member that comes, but some of the guys all covered in tattoos and stuff, no, I don't need to learn how to fight, and when I see red, kind of attitude, and they just need to be humbled.
Yeah. I think ego is a huge part of it. It has to be. It's just the competition, or not the competition, but just our own internal competition. And like you said, the first time you did jiu-jitsu, you had a small girl tapping you out and jumping your back, and a lot of people can't get over it, really.
That's it, and
because they feel vulnerable at that point.
When I do have, like I mentioned, I actually teach at a couple different jiu-jitsu clubs when I'm not working, and when we have a new buff guy come in, I'll put him in one of the purple belt girls, because I want to show people the power of jiu-jitsu, and either they say, I want that power, so I'll be back, or their ego won't allow them. And thankfully for myself, I was one of those people that said, I never want to feel vulnerable like that again, and so I signed up. I think jiu-jitsu is important because it gives you confidence to go to calls and recognize that you have another tool on your use of force belt, and that's your grappling skills.
Yeah, and I find it usually when you have some kind of training in a martial art or anything from wrestling or along those lines, you're less likely to use force.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're more confident in yourself, and you're kind of like, I've done this 1,000 times.
That's it. And going back to when I worked at the nightclub many years ago, in my 20s, I remember like carrying a guy out, and then like we both fell, and I just kind of pinned him, and I told him in his ear, look, dude, nothing personal. I'm going to get off of you. You're going to get up, and you're going to have to leave. Mm-hmm. And then like weeks later, he came back, and everything was cool, and he was telling his friend, oh, that doorman, super nice. He could have laid me out, but he was respectful, and you don't have to hurt people. And grappling is a fantastic way to de-escalate by closing the distance, squeezing them, and getting them restrained without striking and escalating the situation.
Yep, 100%. And if you think about today's world of everything's on film, it doesn't really look great when you're sitting there striking somebody. And
glad you mentioned that, because the police force, I know a lot of police forces in Ontario are rolling out body cameras. Mm-hmm. The one I work for recently got body cameras, and I love them. There's definitely some things to be critical about, but it's excellent evidence. Mm-hmm. And, of course, officers need to be aware of those cameras. But, I mean, there's cameras everywhere to begin with. But at the end of the day, if somebody makes a complaint against an officer, sergeant goes and looks at the video and says, oh, he didn't pull over here and sexually assault them in the 20 seconds it took to go from that corner to the attachment. So I think it's saving a lot of money for the taxpayers at the end of the day.
100%.
Yeah.
So now it seems like you're not quite busy enough to teach at 3 schools. You also have a Landshark BJJ.
Yeah, so Landshark BJJ, when I was a brown belt, I had started it. It's a pro bono organization to simply encourage police officers and first responders to train. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's others out there. There's BJJ Cops with Professor D'Oliveira up in Florida. Mm-hmm. There's, let's see here, those Invictus, there's C4C PJJ, which would be Police Jiu-Jitsu. And those organizations have curriculum designed specifically for law enforcement. My idea is to, and I wrote it on our Instagram page, to teach, first responders the fundamentals of grappling for the field. And to me, that means being able to sweep somebody. Mm-hmm. If they're on top of you, if you don't train sweep, means like reverse them. So if they're on top, about to bring down some fists on you, being able to reverse them and put them on their back. And that would be to either, get on top of them, or to simply get up and access your use of force. Mm-hmm. Other things like simply knowing about an underhook. I think a lot of people in jiu-jitsu with 6 months in, just knowing about the underhook could save them in an actual fight, because without the underhook, it's pretty difficult to get up.
Yep.
So just those are the fundamentals I'm talking about. Sweeping somebody, being able to keep full mount, being able to get those underhooks on full mount to make sure they can't access your use of force. As I mentioned, I'm not an IST instructor. When I do teach law enforcement, I'm teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and sometimes I'll add in a caveat of, you want to make sure that they can't access your use of force weapons here and whatnot. But so that's the idea behind Landshark. I started at, like I mentioned, at brown belt. It's pro bono. I've been doing little seminars here and there, and I've made a nice patch with a nice shark on it. He's got the G-Shock.
Like it.
That all officers wear. He's just missing the Oakleys, of course.
That's right.
And I had said to the buddy of mine who designed them, I said, I want him to look brutal but welcoming,
Yes.
He showed me a few different drafts, and so that's the idea behind that. In my personal garage at home, I got a little dojo going, and I do privates there and train with friends and some cops. Mm-hmm. And then at work is primarily where the training takes place. And I've done a couple seminars now with law enforcement for free. Yep. We've raised money for charities, primarily the Ned's Wish, which is to support retired canine across Canada. Very dear to my heart. Love those canine. Yeah. Love dogs in general. So I said, you know what, let's raise the money for them.
So while we're here, so Ned's Wish, if somebody wanted to donate, or if somebody wanted to know more about it, where would they go for
Ned's
that?
Wish, my brother actually told me about them. Rather, I was looking for a charity that would that I felt needed some attention. Mm-hmm. So Ned's Wish is on Instagram is Ned's_Wish. It's a nonprofit. If you go on their website or Google them, there's multiple ways to donate. They had e-transfer, PayPal, check, and they actually give you a receipt too for your income tax. So I think it's great. They have a lot of people donating and doing charities and fundraisers for them rather. So I think it's a great cause if anyone else is looking to donate to something meaningful like that.
And speaking of social media for Landshark, how can they find you and reach you?
Landshark, we got Landshark_BJJ on Instagram. I don't got an official website yet. As you know, I'm pretty busy. I actually brought in an honorable black belt police officer. He works for Kingston Police Service. And purple belt, good buddy of mine, he's CBSA. So they're involved as well. One of my buddies is going to be teaching Montreal Police under the Landshark banner.
Okay.
So I think that's pretty cool. Of course, I'd like to do more with it, but time is limited, so we'll see where it goes as it keeps growing. My personal account is Claudio BJJ_ on Instagram. I'm an active competitor, so you're welcome to follow me there.
And Landshark, you do that in Montreal?
Well, I teach out of my detachment in Ontario. There's no school open to the public right now. If law enforcement did want to get in contact with me, they can reach out to me on Instagram, and I can make arrangements if they want to come train, or if they want a suggestion for a police-friendly school or a jiu-jitsu-friendly school. I'm happy to help out with that.
Oh, and you, I take it you travel if somebody wanted to have you come by and...
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to travel and organize a seminar with a couple other black belts police officers. That'd be my pleasure. As I mentioned, there's a lot of good organizations out there. I think jiu-jitsu is becoming, I'll use the word huge in policing.
Well, there's sport jiu-jitsu and there's jiu-jitsu, and for policing, well, what's the difference between like sport jiu-jitsu? Obviously, a cop's not going to pull guard in the middle of a thing, and it sounds like that's what you do when you do your Landshark, like keeping it to more police applicable.
Well, I think some people might be more critical about sport jiu-jitsu when it comes to real life, but I think if you're a competitive jiu-jitsu athlete, chances are you're going to win in a street fight. I personally am a big deep half guard player. I'm not going to pull deep half in a street fight. I'm going to arm drag or try and get a clinch and bring them to the floor and restrain them. Of course, if it's a multi-man scenario, your jiu-jitsu is going out the door. So, like I mentioned earlier, I trained in Hawaiian Kempo, and the whole idea was multi-man scenario. And like working in a nightclub, great. I isolated the guy. I'm carrying him out. But if he's got buddies about to bottle you, you got to be looking around. So,
100%.
All that to say, don't pull guard in the street. But guess what? Chances are you're going to be trying to restrain somebody. You're going to fall on your back, and they're going to be on top of you. And you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to make it quickly. Am I reversing him? Am I clinching him so he doesn't have the range of motion to drop a hard elbow or punch on me until my partner comes in? So you better know how to fight on your back as well. Yeah,
and I'm the same on that too. Like a lot of people, they'll say, oh, jiu-jitsu, you're fighting off the ground. Yeah, well, like you said, I'm not going to pull guard, or ideally I don't want to be on my back. But you think about almost every takedown that we do in policing, you're taking the person to the ground. So you better have a pretty good top game.
Absolutely.
And know how to keep pressure and to keep that person down and not let them build the house. And
that's it.
And amazing surprise here is sometimes you're going to do a takedown and everything slips. You're on snow or water or rain and you fall on the ground and now you end up on your back. You better know how to get up off your back. So I'm big on that. Like when people...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, but just like you said, when people try to say, oh, jiu-jitsu for police isn't really relevant. Yeah, I'd say it is.
And it's not going to always work out perfectly, right? So like you said, you're going to slip, there's snow, guess what? The ground is hard. Better know how to butterfly too. And for the love of God, guys, put your radio cables through your shirt, because I see a lot of officers running it down their back, and I don't want to be critical. Like, one guy at work was JTF2. Let's say I'm not going to go to JTF2 guy and say, yeah, maybe you should run your cable down your shirt instead of your back. But I can tell you more than once, even working in nightclubs, like guys would get their radios yanked right off. Then guess what? You have no backup and you're surrounded. So
yes, I think we've all been guilty of that.
Yeah, probably myself included.
Yeah, probably still are. Okay, so favorite technique that you say translates from jiu-jitsu to policing?
The Kimura is excellent because it'll bring you right in handcuff position.
Yep.
It's easy to bring their face down to the floor when you got a nice Kimura going in. And guys, if you're a white belt, I mean, maybe it's not the best because you could pop their shoulder or bust their elbow if it's real tight.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a trained jiu-jitsu athlete, Kimura is excellent to get somebody down. And you know what? If it's grievous bodily harm or death and you're not the best at Kimura and you latch one on, I'm not one to judge. So
It doesn't really matter at that point.
But I think it's excellent to get them down on their belly. The wrist is at the small of their back, and you're right in the handcuff position.
Yep.
So.
And you have a little twist on the Kimura that I find very interesting, but you're going to have to attend a Landshark BJJ seminar to get that. Let's put that little out there.
We could get that tighter.
Yeah. The Kimura, all of us across Canada, we have civilian oversight, and any kind of triers of factor are going to be civilian, and oftentimes members that do train, they'll write it in and they'll be writing their report and they say, yeah, I did a Kimura. And sometimes it does come back and it's like, well, fair enough that the person reading that, the analyst, the civilian analyst, might read it and have no idea what that is. So what would you, in an easy way, how would you describe a Kimura if you were writing this out?
Well, that's it. We got to know how to articulate what we're doing for the common person. Like when we write our reports, we describe everything we do. I would describe the Kimura. I mean, it's a figure four lock where you're isolating their elbow and shoulder. That's pretty much what it is, and you're using it obtain control on your suspect or your subject. You know, when people do use of force, they're used to writing, oh, the guy bladed his body, he clenched his fist, he had a fighting stance. We're going to have to learn how to articulate these techniques if we're going to use them on the job.
Yep.
And I think IST, which is in service training, is going to have to learn to explain what these techniques are to our members so that they can put it down in their notebook or their general reports.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, maybe you didn't mean to hurt somebody and the technique went wrong, but you're going to be able to articulate what you were doing and what your state of mind was and why you chose to do that particular technique.
Awesome. Guess we'll put it here. Is there anything that you think that's pressing that we haven't talked about that you want to get out there?
Well, I thought maybe the recruitment thing was cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I was telling, we were talking about that earlier before the mic was on. At work, I'm what's called, on top of my detective duties, I recently became involved with recruitment, which is pro bono on the side as well, because I have a vested interest in the members that are working with me, you know. There's so many excellent cops out there, and then we got one bad apple that tears down all that community policing that we put our effort in. Recently there was a service in Ontario where there was a wildlife that had to be dispatched that was hurt on the road, and the member, for whatever reason, and you know, I haven't read any reports, maybe there were children around, I don't know, but they chose not to use their firearm to dispatch the animal, and they used an axe, and that angered a lot of animal rights groups. So I say that because I want people with a brain on their shoulders, you know. And all that to say, I recently began going to jiu-jitsu events. We're setting up a recruitment table there, handing out recruitment information. I'm well known in my community, so people say, oh, Claudio he's a jiu-jitsu guy, he's a cop, looks like cops are human too, and if he could do it, I can do it. And I'm going to be doing one on Saturday in the Montreal area, and you know what, I'll be handing out recruitment material and answering questions, and then I'm going to secure my use of force, and I'm going to go compete myself so they can see that, you know. Well, I think that's community policing right there, 100%. Actually.
Well, if you think about, you go to a jiu-jitsu school and you get everyone across the board, and this is where everyone gets together, and, you know, whatever we do outside or whatever it is, nothing matters. Now we're all just on the mats together, and we're training together, and you get to, this is where you really get out into the public and meet people, and it also shows that you're as a cop, you're looking at your profession, you're trying to better yourself.
Absolutely. And what do we want? We want efficient people that are disciplined, that are fit, that they've made it part of their lifestyle. You know, those are the kind of people we want. And so that's why I've I've made this initiative to go to tournaments and speak to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be hundreds of kids there, so I'm going to try and make a good impression with the children too. I can tell you, one of the first interactions I had with a police officer was in elementary that came to speak at our school, and I was in awe. Of course, I had seen RoboCop a bunch of times and Lethal Weapon. I got Mel Gibson on my cubicle wall, but
Nice.
that police officer in elementary, he made a good impression, and he was very nice to us as children. And here I am, 36 years later, and I'm a police officer. So
It's awesome.
I had one more. Oh, right. Just real quick, I was reflecting just the other day on what you were talking about, the people in our jiu-jitsu class, and I was like, in my class alone, I have a doctor, there's a mechanic, there's a rap artist who's actually super successful. That's his full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
I always see he's touring the world and all. And then I got a published author. Just a wonderful group of people, and I'm so grateful. Once in a while you'll get a bad apple in that you either have to get in line with everybody else or send him or her on their way. But generally, I feel jiu-jitsu attracts wonderful people, and it really brings us together. And that's why I started Landshark. A lot of officers, their shift is done, and they go off their way, or they go, let's go for beers.
Mm-hmm.
We go on the mats, we sweat. There's physical touch. We're not thinking about those tough calls we had or the bills. We're in the moment, and we're having a good time together. So,
awesome. Claudio, thank you so much for doing this. And again, I guess if anybody's going to be in the Montreal area, if you're law enforcement or first responder, reach out and see if you can get into a class or see if there's a seminar coming up.
Excellent. Thank you for having
Awesome.
me, and God bless.
You too. If you want more information on Claudio and Landshark, you can check out their Instagram page at Landshark BJJ.